I was having dinner with Crosby Kemper in Kansas City on another matter entirely. It was related to DFA, my then employer, where I was co-chairman. And we were having dinner, and I said, Crosby, I think we need a Cato of Missouri. And he said, I've been thinking of the same thing.
And he told me that he had always wanted to come back to Missouri and start a state public policy think tank. And I said, I had the same desire. He knew, and I knew, from slightly different angles, Mike Podgursky.
I said, why don't we have a meeting and just get started? And he said, okay. And he said, I'm going to call one guy. He says, Mike Podgursky. He's a professor of economics at Missouri in Columbia, and he's really good. The stuff he does is excellent.
Crosby and Rex talked about starting a free market think tank here in Missouri. That was kind of a trend. Or at least most states, many states, had their own free market think tanks. So there were plenty of think tanks in D.C. around free markets, but this process of sort of growing a bunch of them in the states was out there.
And so Rex got us together at the farm, Central Missouri, and the three of us, and we talked about this, and we decided we ought to create a state public policy think tank. Missouri at that point was one of the few states that didn't have one.
We met there and talked, and I said, look, the whole purpose of us is to do stuff buttressed by research. And that fits very well with the name, the nickname of the state of Missouri, the Show-Me State. So why don't we just call it the Show-Me Institute? And they both agreed right away, and we were off and running.
We had to make an impact in the state by establishing credibility. That's the first thing that we wanted to do, was make sure if we published a paper, it was defensible, it had addressed the contrary arguments, that we were a force to be reckoned with in the state. That was the very first job, get credibility.
I became involved at the Show-Me Institute thanks to Party Cove at Lake of the Ozarks. In 2006, I was at a cousin's bachelor party and hanging out on the boats, and sure enough, I looked across the line of boats, and an acquaintance of mine who I hadn't seen in a while, Jason Hanisch, was there on a boat with a group of his friends, and it was a much larger boat, so I decided I was going to swim over there and hang out with him for the day. So I swam over, hang out with Jason, and he told me about this new think tank, this new policy organization that had just been started.
We had to hire a director, so we did. And then the director brought in smart young people, and it sort of grew, I'd say sort of spontaneously, sort of bottom up. They were creative young people who had lots of ideas. So we had book clubs, and we were publishing papers, and of course we brought in speakers and things like that. So in a way, we kind of brought in a bunch of smart young people, creative smart young people, and kind of let the thing grow up organically.
We knew we were growing and researching and trying to have an impact, and building the organization to have that impact was the tricky part in those really early years.
The written mission is unchanged. Advancing liberty with responsibility by promoting market solutions for Missouri public policy.
I was interested in becoming involved with the Institute because of its mission. It wanted to make a difference in the lives of Missourians from a free market perspective, which is really a philosophy that I embrace.
But ultimately, the measure of our success is our public policies. Do we change public policies? And I think we've done that in a great deal. We've expanded school choice. We've cut taxes, the first big tax cut in Missouri's history. Everybody's taking credit for it, so we'll take credit too.
Things like our analysis of the success or failure of individual Missouri schools has had a big effect. People now have a good idea, and even the State Department of Education has reacted ultimately in a positive fashion to generating that kind of information.
The Missouri School Rankings Project, because I live in Columbia and everyone assumes that we have good public schools. Well, the data is showing that that's not the case, and that might be why a lot of people are moving out of the school district. But it's good to have data to back things up as we push for things like educational freedom.
Is our work on the Missouri budget. The Missouri budget is a big, complicated animal. I don't think most people have any idea what's going on inside that thing. And our researchers have really been able to pick that apart, explain to people how it works.
We've had a great deal of impact at the state level in limiting the growth of occupational licensing in Missouri, and in some respects, pushing back and removing a few of the things that used to be licensed as well. And we also see that same trend slowly but surely taking place around the country, and it was great to have been sort of on the forefront of that in Missouri.
The blueprint that we put out every year, it's backed up by all these white papers and all this data, but people don't have time to read all the papers, but you condense it down into policy recommendations that are in 1 or 2 pages that can be presented to the legislature. And I think that that's a brilliant idea. We've been doing it for a number of years now.
So we have to respond to what government does. So if Jeff City does X and it's not a good idea, we have to respond to that.
The state lawmakers are receiving tons of information from different corners, and pretty much all of those corners are self-interested, lobbyists and other groups. So the question is, who is advocating for taxpayers? Who is advocating for regular citizens? And that's precisely the role that Show-Me Institute is playing.
Back 20 years ago when it was created, people would be talking about, well, what taxes might be increases? How much will taxes increase? Now we have in place systematic tax reductions, and the conversation is about how low will the taxes go and how frequently. We've expanded school choice, and basically the opponents of free market, I would say, are on the defensive in a number of areas, and it's because of the work of the Institute.
This isn't about any one group, it's about all the Missouri citizens trying to make it better for them.
Moving people to a deeper understanding of the usefulness of markets in allocating resources in society and in promoting a just society where individual responsibility is the heart of the whole program.
I think the Show-Me Institute's work and its impact is really just beginning. We've already made a big difference, but I think with changes in the state, the opportunity to take Missouri to the next level and to really compete with those states we hear about at the vanguard of growth, like Texas, Tennessee, Florida, and others, I think that opportunity is now, and the Show-Me Institute is going to be a key critical player in moving that forward.
So I think we've come to the point where we're hitting Missouri economic policy at a lot of levels. I think there's sort of something for everybody.
In terms of the core mission around individual liberty and markets, holy cow, I mean, that's now more than ever.
I guess I'd say to anybody who leans towards markets and good government, if the Show-Me Institute isn't doing it, it's not getting done. So we better do it.
When you're talking about public policy, you have to persevere. And the staff and the board persevere because we do believe that the free market philosophy is the one that will offer the greatest opportunity to Missourians.
I'm really heartened by the success that we've had. If you told me 20 years ago, here's what you will have accomplished, I said I'd be shocked if we did that, but we've done it.